Hi, so here we are, we're starting, session 9, and we're looking at human resources. I think I'd like to look at one of the main things that we look at as human resources doing, and it's something that we've kind of participated in, so it's not new stuff, but we're going to look at the two sides of the hiring process. And so we'll just start down the middle. These are the steps that happen. Maybe not all of them, but for the majority of time. This is what we have experienced as a candidate, and this is what HR experiences over here. So let's kind of go down through these. First of all, there's the advertisement for the position. Well, all we have to do is search for it. So we'll search for jobs using the paper, using job boards, using job services, Indeed.com, Monster.com, what is it called? Ivy Tech has its own job referral, and I'll be darned if I can think of what it's called. JobZone. So that you can get on and see who's specifically looking for people from Ivy Tech to do a job. Now, that seems hard and it's time-consuming, but let's kind of look at the human resources side. They've got just as equally as difficult job as we do, if not more so, because they have to look into the future, and they have to look at job requirements, and they have to look at the skills, and they have to look and see what kind of educational background that advertisement is going to involve, and then they have to be able to create or write an advertisement or a help-wanted ad that matches what is required for the job, and that can be fairly complex. Many human resource departments have specific job descriptions with specific job skills, and all of the requirements that have to be followed. So even though our side is fairly difficult, I think human resources has to really back things up also, because they have to look at the legal aspects and all of the federal and state requirements for being a fair employer. Then it comes to the application. We fill it out, and we always have to double check to make sure it agrees with our resumes. That's one thing human resources do. They'll look at your application and make sure everything agrees with what you've turned in on your resume. On the other side of it, human resources over here, they have to make a legal application. They can't ask too many of the wrong questions, or too many questions that are too personal. They have to really stick to the skills that are required. So that application that you see has been vetted many times. Next thing you do is you do the application, then you're also going to send a resume. And, compared to an application, a resume is more so, I think, difficult for human resources, because everybody's putting on their best foot and they have to sort through them. An application is just the facts. A resume is going to give more detail, so that means while we spend an awful lot of time creating that, and we use career specialists to do that, to ensure that the resume is of good quality and we follow all of the standards. When it gets over here to human resources, they have to screen those and they have to evaluate them all. And that can be quite time consuming. And again, they have to be within the requirements of the law. So after they've sorted out and vetted out maybe 6 good candidates, they start calling for interviews. We have to prepare for the possible questions, and they can be many and varied. On the other hand, HR has to determine which questions to ask and how. And what's really important here is this interview has to be fairly consistent across candidates. So if one candidate, let's say one candidate can't come in and is going to do a phone interview, which is usually what one of your first interviews would be, they really like to interview everybody by phone first, and not just bring some in and phone on others. So there's a lot of thinking that goes into that first interview, for the call for interview. Once they have that set up and the appointment set up, then they may ask you to do a pre-employment screening, which is going to kind of look at the minimum skills, and they're going to test them. Again, they've got to determine what those skills are and create a good test that evaluates that. You have your first interview, which may be a phone interview, or it may be an in-person interview. It could even be a video interview. Especially since nowadays we're using webinars and things of that nature a lot more, which would make it a lot less expensive. So before we go to this first interview, have to determine the company culture, the required dress, the behavior codes, so we don't walk in and really blow it just in the first meeting. And then they must determine that our interviews are similar and fairly represent the interviewees presented to everybody on the same basis. Interviews, while they're exhausting to us, are equally as exhausting to the HR. It is very difficult to interview people on a continual basis, asking the same questions, trying to gauge the answers. If you get through the first interview, you'll probably have a second interview, and that will probably be with department heads or supervisors, whoever will be working with you. So again, you have to decide on this side who we're going to interview with and how detailed is this going to be. On the other side, HR has to arrange for all of these interviews, and usually with people in different management levels. So that gets to be quite a nightmare at times. Then after the second interview, that's usually about as far as that it will go. They'll make a determination. They have to extend an offer to you. You have to weigh all the benefits, the wages, the hours, the employment, the pros and cons of the job, and possibly even negotiate an offer. On the other hand, HR has got two things in mind. Number one, they have to kind of ensure, if you're a good candidate, that you will accept the offer. Number two, they also have to look out at the best interest for the company and the needs of the company. So that the wages and the benefits and everything have to be kind of within a narrow band. If you accept it, then there are other employment tests that are going to come along. They may ask for personality tests. They definitely will ask for background checks. They'll probably ask for physical tests. All of these for us are nerve-wracking, but for this side, it takes scheduling. It takes having a third party to be able to do the background checks. It's expensive, and there's all the bringing together of all this data to ensure that you meet the requirements. Then you'll probably have a training period if all of the above go well, in which they're going to spend, it's called an orientation period. Some of those are a week, some of those are 8 hours. Sometimes you may train for 2 weeks. Sometimes you may actually have to take a course before you can start work. So that gets fairly expensive, because now we're looking at specific skills that they want to get you trained in for the job. After the training period, then there's a probationary period, which is a very iffy period for both sides. If you read how much it costs to prepare people to come into a position, just from advertising to this period right here, there's a lot of money riding on this. Most interviews or most the amount of money that it costs a company can be anywhere from $800,000 to $100,000, just depending on the position. So this is a very iffy period. The company wants to be able to provide ample time for the employee to be successful and to prove your worthiness. On the other hand, you have to be competent and responsible and almost overdo what you can do to get through this period. After that period's up, there's going to be an evaluation. Again, this is kind of a tenuous period, because you as a candidate or as an employee have to be able to accept and welcome an honest evaluation. The HR has to ensure it is an honest evaluation. That do pick out your strengths and weaknesses. If you get past this probationary period, this evaluation, then you're in full employment. Benefits all kick in, and you'll probably be appraised annually to see if you're meeting the requirements of the position. And each company does that in a different way. But the company and the HR is going to continue to monitor you, evaluate what you're doing, give a mentor if they think you need it. There's all kinds of things after you're hired that HR will do to ensure that you stay with the company. Because like I said, it's a lot of money that has now been invested. So that is just one thing that HR does. They do the hiring. After they've hired you, you have them also taking care of your benefits packages, your fringe benefits. They're doing constant training to make sure or to ensure that you understand all the rules and regulations for sexual harassment, for how to protect yourself, fair practices. So they're almost a legal arm when you look at how they manage employees. They're good people to know. They also do a lot more detail than what we typically know. So thank you.